Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Rescue Owners Live. My name is KIRK MOTE, and this is Season 2, Episode number 17. Super excited to be with you here tonight. Beth will be joining us shortly, so stay tuned. She'll be definitely bring the power and the heat for sure. So listen, if you are joining us for the first time, Rescue Owners Live is all about creating your business, helping it grow more effectively, efficiently, and profitably, all while achieving your personal, professional, financial goals. Last week, we dove deep into some sales secrets. So before Beth gets here and we dive into the follow-up portion of those sales secrets, I kind of want to recap a little bit about what we talked about last week. But hey, listen, in the chat, we'll love to hear if this is your first time, maybe this is your 100th time. I don't know what it is. Go ahead and throw in the chat where you are tuning in from, because we love to learn where our audience is listening in from. Put your name, put your business, name if you want to do that, and city and state. Listen, I'm coming from you from Atlanta, Georgia, and we are super excited to have you with us tonight, because I guarantee you there's going to be something that we talk about that's going to help grow your business more effectively, efficiently, and profitably. Atlanta, Georgia, Houston, Texas. Let's go, Malcolm Smith. Thank you so much for being with us here tonight. Got Texas in the house. Get excited. So listen, if you have questions throughout the night, if you have questions about previous episodes, feel free to throw those in the chat. We would love to know what your questions are. Hey, what is the biggest bottleneck in your business right now? That's a question I like to ask people that are in business a lot. Why? Because no matter how small you are, no matter how big you get, there's always a bottleneck. There's always something that's going to be, holding you back personally, your business back. And so it's such a great question. And as you know, the quality of your questions determine the quality of your results. So make sure that you're asking good questions, because if you ask dumb questions, you'll get dumb results. And that's just a proven fact. So all that to say, Ryan Jackson, hey, Kurt, watching from Illinois, just across the river from St. Louis. Ryan, thank you for joining us, brother. Listen, if you have questions tonight, I hit me with your best shot. Seriously, we want to hear what your biggest struggles in business are. Are they sales related? Are they operations, related? Maybe they're marketing related, or maybe they're even administration related. That's your HR, your payroll, your maybe your QuickBooks, your proposals, your accounting, your bookkeeping, those types of things, right? Everyone has questions. Everyone has things that they're really good at. Like for me, Michael Glover, how's it going, brother? Watching from Arizona. Thank you for joining us, Michael. For me, I love sales. I geek out on sales, and I love teaching people about sales. I love teaching the sales process, and that's just something I love doing. Operations, same thing. Marketing, senior sales. The thing that I love to hire out is administrative work. So for me, I know how to do it because I've done it, but I know that I'm way more efficient at one other area. Maybe that's sales. Maybe that's right. My number one problem is your number one problem, which is obscurity, and we want to break out of obscurity, because people don't. What do I mean by obscurity? When I say obscurity, people don't know who you are, what you do, why you do it. Who you are, what you do, why you do it. By the way, that's your marketing plan. Beth, how's it going? You can just join it, pop in, whatever. Beth Mote in the house tonight. So who you are, what you do, why you do it. That's your marketing plan. That is how you break out of obscurity. People don't know who you are, what you do, why you do it. So you got to tell them. How are you telling them? Are you on social media? Are you doing door-to-doors? Are you doing emails? Are you texting? I mean, literally all the mediums that you could possibly think of. Are you taking advantage of that? Hiring people is the highest or the hardest right now. Michael Glover from Arizona. He's saying that, I'm going to pop that up on the screen so everyone can see that. Michael Glover from Arizona. Hiring people is the hardest right now. Anyone else in the audience that is listening tonight, go ahead and throw down one of the hardest things that you're dealing with when it comes to your business. And so we're talking about bottlenecks. We're talking about things that, whether it's sales, operations, marketing, administration, like there are bottlenecks at every level of business.
Oh, definitely. And everybody has something.
Yay, Beth is here. I know none of y'all come for KIRK. I get it.
But everyone definitely has something they're dealing with, whether it's something that is a knowledge gap or it's a break point. Break point being you scaling your business to the next level. You've hit a certain point where in order to move to the next level of business, of revenue, of production, you need to bring on something new, whether that's technology or people. There's a number of things there, but yeah, definitely everyone has a bottleneck. And honestly, if you think that you don't have one, you probably just are blind to what's currently happening, whether that be it being a people problem and you're not aware of it, but everyone else is. That can happen a lot. Being in different organizations over the years, like I've definitely seen things like that where, the person in charge of either that department or that group or the company is like, oh, this person's great. And everyone else is like, not so much. Or it's a process or a procedure. So especially for people with larger companies where they have multiple employees or even like team leads over other employees, managers,
yeah.
Super important, honestly, like to be bringing in people and have a very open door policy, have a community or a atmosphere about your business to where people feel comfortable approaching you and saying, hey, there is an issue with this. And even better, if you can create a environment where they don't just bring problems to you, but they say, hey, this is an issue. I think this would be a good solution.
Yeah. So Michael, I know you know this, but for the benefit of everyone else listening here tonight, and for those who will be listening on the recording, hiring. One thing I think one of our mutual mentors, Brandon Dawson, mentioned about hiring, and I love this, by the way, is how when you go out to the marketplace and you're like, man, you can't find any good people out there. It is so hard to find. They're chasing the next 50 cents, per hour raise. And people are just, scumbags, right? I mean, like that's how you're talking about.
Or
lazy. They're this like,
they just don't want to work.
So what Brandon said, that this really got me thinking. I was taking notes on this when I was listening to him. And I know you remember this particular session, was that, talk about the type of person that you want to have.
Yeah, you want to attract.
And the type of person you want to attract. Let me tell you something. I'm looking to hire someone that is inspirational, like disciplined, accountable, transparent, results oriented, and just kind of go through your core values even.
Well, and in the instances where you are tempted to say, oh, it's just so hard to find good people, turn it around to, hey, I am always looking for awesome people who XYZ, just like the things that KIRK was listing, and list your values or the things that you need in people or the things you would like to have in people. Because if you are outputting a negative vibe, for lack of better words, those people who you want, the people that you wish you had and you don't, are not going to be interested in joining your company.
Yeah.
They're only going to be perked ears, listening, interested when they hear you saying, hey, I'm looking for an awesome person who does X, Y, and Z. And they go, oh, I can do X, Y, and Z, or I always do that, or I'm the only person in my company currently doing it and it's dragging me down. That person sounds like he has a team of people like that. I want to go there.
Yeah. And look, you attract what you're, putting out. So if you're putting out that negativity, you're going to attract negative type of employers.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably heard the statistics, of all the employees out there, 2/3 of them are disengaged, and 1/3. So like the bottom 1/3 is actually actively disengaged. And these are people who have taken a Gallup poll study that said, hey, look, I'm actively undermining the success of my business. They admitted to that. 1/3 of employees. That baffles me. Okay.
Oh, honestly, it doesn't baffle me, to be totally
it probably
frank.
Is more than that, honestly, because those are the people that admitted to it, right?
Well, just the reason that it doesn't surprise me is because of the interactions that I have with employees. a lot of them, it's not common. It's an uncommon situation for me to interact with an employee and have them be like, hey, how are you doing? How can I help you? Hope you're having an awesome day. It's, hey, can I take your order? Or nothing at all. Like if you're walking into like a retail place, like for example, a place that has done things really, really well, that extra little something instead of just like, hi, is there's a rock climbing place near us down here called Stone Summit. And when people come in, I used to work there before and during college.
Where I met her, by the way.
Yeah, true. Yes. They would go the extra step and greet people when they came in, obviously, but they would learn the names of current members who come in constantly. They're there every week, they're there every day. And so when they would walk in, they'd be like, hey, Michael, what's up? I got you signed in. You're good to go. They knew them so well. They knew their first name, their last name. They could log them in. They didn't even have to come in and swipe their key card. Like,
which is so
huge,
powerful.
Huge.
Like, when you think like one of the biggest thing, like the sweetest word to every single person that lists like in the world, is their name. Ryan, Malcolm, Michael. Like those are your names of people who are listening in the audience right now. That's the sweetest word you'll ever hear. Because why? You're like,
as long as it's said in a good,
right. But like sweet in the sense that like no matter what's going on, it'll get your attention.
Well,
like,
and
you could be in a crowded location. Kirk. Did someone say
I was gonna say, like, he'll say my name, be talking to someone at the other end of the gym, music's blaring. I can't hear a thing that someone's saying, but I'll go, you said my name. What are you talking about?
It is so
I heard
powerful. If I can encourage you to like focus in on one thing, is memorizing, actively choosing to memorize people's names.
Yeah.
When you meet someone, get their name and say it back to them, and then say it back. Try to work it in 2-3 times before you leave.
Yeah. And also
have a good one.
I found it helpful to, like, if I know someone else with that same name, obviously it doesn't always work, but if I know someone else with that same name, I visualize them. So I get like a chain of like Wes's that just sort of like one leads to another. But it's challenging because it's been ingrained in most of us to say, hey, what's your name? Oh, awesome. I'm such and such. And you don't remember. As soon as you've said your name to them, you don't remember what they said afterwards. I do it all the time. No. It's so bad. I look at them and I go, I know you just said it. Say it again, please.
So like one thing I do, and like just because I know that I am challenged with remembering names. So like if I'm meeting someone for the first time, I'll say, hey, let me get your number. And I hand them my phone. I say, hey, you know it better than I do. So they've already, told it to me once, and then they're typing it in. So I'm watching them type it in, and then I take a picture of them and then with them, and I send the picture that I take of each other to them. And so it's all these things back and forth. So I have a visual. So like I literally take a picture of them, so that now like whenever I text or call that person, that person's face comes up and it's like, oh, I remember exactly where I met him because of the clothes he was wearing, the environment that he was in the background that I'm seeing whenever he calls a text, right? And so like that's just my process, something that feel free to take on for yourself.
Well,
too.
And you're not necessarily getting the number of every single person that you talk to. True. Kirk's like, I have a million contacts in my phone.
It was funny, but when we first met, you were like, dude, it shouldn't take that long to get your contacts switched over. You remember this? It was like Verizon. I think I was bringing you on to Verizon. I was also upgrading my phone.
Yeah.
Anyway, Beth had like a couple hundred numbers in her phone, and I had a couple thousand. So which has grown way far since then.
Yeah.
But I definitely have a lot of phone numbers in my phone.
But
I've since gotten a CRM. Thank you, Michael, for suggesting HubSpot, by the way.
Oh, you see, Malcolm likes your strategy.
Yeah,
he's going to be implementing that. Yeah, I love having the pictures because
super powerful.
Even if you have like a couple hundred names in your phone, you're going to have like 5 Anns and 20 Malcolms, and you're which one?
I literally show them. It's like, hey, I need your last name. Because sometimes people are weird about last names. I don't know why.
Yeah, I've had a couple of people do that.
But I'm like, dude, you are literally the 17th John in my phone.
Well, and honestly, I've had people that had the same first and last name. I was like, oh no. I didn't realize it at first, but I was like, I have 2 Sarah Williams. This is a problem. And I didn't have a picture there.
It's funny.
So,
that was exactly what I thought you were going to say.
Yeah. And one of them ended up getting married. And so the name changed. I was like, okay, good. This is helpful. But I didn't have a picture of them. So initially when I put the second one in my phone, I was like, I truly have no way of knowing which is which. So I had to go and try to find like a text thread. So
by the way,
put pictures there.
So by the way, like taking the picture with them, I love that so much because it creates a moment.
Yeah.
It creates something that you shared together.
Well, and it creates like, well, I guess that's what you're saying, but it creates a memory of them being like, oh yeah, that was the guy that took picture with me.
Exactly.
And people like taking pictures, usually, not always.
I mean, for the most part, I mean, there's always few, right?
Yeah.
Well, listen, now that Beth is here and we kind of got, kicked off, I do want to go back and do a little bit of recap of what we talked about last week. And then we'll dive into, the topic of this week, which is all under the top sales secrets, by the way, from Grant Cardone. I am a Grant Cardone licensee, which means I am licensed to teach Grant Cardone's material. If you are interested, you or your business are interested in having someone like me come to your facility and teach your sales team how to sell, teach your marketing team. We have a marketing execution workshop. We have a sales execution workshop. The sales is, personally my favorite. I love it. Why? Because, it literally goes through, the greeting, the demo, the full thing. You see the whiteboard back here. It goes through the full sales process. And then you walk away with not only understanding the process, but knowing how to ask good fact-finding questions.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, you also create a sales script through that.
Oh yeah,
that one too.
That was
the biggest one.
That is exactly why it's called a workshop. Unlike a boot camp where you're just kind of sucking in knowledge and just taking notes. This is set up as a workshop so that you are walking away with inbound scripts, outbound scripts, follow-up campaigns for like a year. It is powerful.
Yeah, when we initially did the sales workshop ourselves, that was personally, I think, the most powerful thing that I felt like I walked away with the scripts, and not just the scripts, but the ability to create more scripts. I think the most important aspect of it was the fact that we actually did it, because you start to work through stuff and then you get a little bit like, oh, well, I know they said this, but I'm not sure about that. And so you have someone there physically to be able to, during that working time, that 15 minutes, whatever, that you can work at multiple times, but to go, hey, can you look at this? Does this make sense? Is this a good question? Because sometimes they'll go, don't, like, that's a good question, but ask it here, not here.
Right.
Or don't ask that at all. Like, you probably already know that. You should ask this question instead.
Or when you really get into the nitty gritty, when you ask a really good question, you get a couple of answers, even though they only say one thing.
Yeah.
And so that's how deep this gets, which is so powerful, because, people hear sales scripts are like, oh, you're going to be a robot. No, the best salespeople are not robots. Yeah. They just know the process and the information that they need to gather.
Well, and you have to create a structure to be able to make it conversational.
Yeah.
It's really, without a sales script, for most people, there are some people that
conversational and duplicatable.
I would still say most people are really awkward without a sales script, because they don't really know where they're going with the conversation. And then
some people are great talkers, like they can just talk.
And then if you do have a sales script, it's important then to do it enough until it gets conversational. It might sound robotic the first couple of times. That's why you practice it before you do it. 100%. So, and that's honestly done during the sales workshop too, where you say, okay, turn to your partner. You're going to do your sales script with them, and they're going to do theirs with you. We're only going to
do the greeting, right? It's like,
yeah, just part of it.
And then we just we build onto it. So by the end of it, you got a full thing blown out, and it's incredible.
I'm not going to lie. It's incredibly awkward at first, but you're doing it with someone else who's about to be incredibly awkward back to you. So you get to practice. You're like, hey, my name's Beth Fleischman with Rescue Site. Oh, dang it. I said
Fleischman.
Hold on.
Wow.
No, let me finish. You're interrupting my wonderful moment. Hi, my name is Beth Fleischman with Rescue Site. Oh, dang it. Wow, I got so nervous that I said my maiden name. Like, things like that where, you're going to mess up and you're going to say things like that, or it'll say like, hi, my name is, and be like, no, wait, that's not how to say it. It's, hi, I'm Beth with Rescue Site. Oh yeah, I wasn't even supposed to say my last name. Like, things like that, where you get to work through what that feels like. And by the time you're done, still might feel a little awkward, but you went from insanely awkward to, okay, I can at least get through this and sound pretty normal.
Yeah.
And then just keep drilling it until it gets easy. But you can't practice it unless you have something to practice.
Yeah, I have a buddy of mine who's setting up a call center using Grant Cardone's sales script process, which is real. He's going to be pretty savage. I mean, I'm pretty excited for him. But what he's done is a lot of market research. And so he's hired, part of the hiring process of the call center, each person, he's like, okay, teaches them the full sales process. And he's like, we're going to have you do step 1 and get that first objection, write it down, and just say, have a good day, or hang up on them if you want to. I don't care. Like, he's like, I just want you to write down the objections. And then by the end of it, you're going to notice that there's several that overlap. And then actually, there's really only a top few that really apply in this situation.
Sort of becomes market research at that point.
There are certain objections. That's what I was just saying. I thought I said market research. I don't know. But so what is happening is you start to recognize that you hear certain objections, which we actually classify as complaints in the sales process. So knowing that it's part of the sales process versus an actual complaint is something that you're going to learn. Yeah. Which is great, because if you hear, hey, not interested, and you're like, oh, have a great day. Sorry to bother you. Well, guess what? Of course, they're not interested. You don't have enough information to be interested. Let me ask you. And then you go into your first fact-finding question.
Well, and
if you know how to handle it, then you're able to handle it as a complaint and know that, hey, this is part of the sales process, not an actual complaint, or not an actual objection, rather.
You get to see patterns too of like when someone says X, they normally mean Y, or when they say this, they normally, have this actual underlying complaint, or, this should be something that you suggest them and they didn't realize that. Like maybe they think that they can only get one size and like, no, I don't want it because of whatever. And you're like, oh, did you know that we also have these options? Oh, I didn't realize that. That there might be common things that people aren't aware of that you assume are just common knowledge because you're in the industry. Just like there's a lot of terminology, and that's something else we work with the sales scripts of cutting out industry specific terminology that most people don't know, but you do, to make sure it's super understandable.
So I would love to hear in the chat, what's your biggest objection or complaint that you hear? I would like just throw it in the chat. Love to hear what some of those objections are that you're hearing. Maybe we can help with a great response, because really
and what industry that would be,
and what industry too. Yeah, like throw down the industry that you're in, and then also the number 1 or top 3, or whatever complaint or objection you hear a lot. While you're putting that in the chat, I do want to go ahead and do a quick recap of the last week's top sales secrets. Number 1 was start with your power base. If you are taking notes tonight, just a reminder, if you were not here last week, start with your power base. These are people that you know and love. These are people that these are warm leads. These are people that I would say, probably have your best interest at heart. More so than a cold call. So, it's a zero cost to you. Everyone has them. And like I said, they're warm calls. Number 2 is agree with the buyer no matter what. This is the number 1 rule of selling. Always, always, always agree. So important, because no one wants to buy from someone that is, disagreeable. No one wants to buy from someone who's negative. No one wants to buy from someone that they're clashing with. So make sure that, part of, you don't have to lie, of course, but you have to, agree. And that can look like so many different ways. And just being positive is a huge agreement and the mirroring of the conversation. The next one was present numbers to everyone. One of the biggest things that I see so often is they're like, man, I don't understand why my close rate is so low. I don't understand why I only made this much money this month or this week or today. And I'm like, okay, let's look at your, close rate. And then we look at, okay, these are the deals that you made versus the proposals you sent. And I was like, dude, that's awesome. You have a 90% close rate. Yes, killer. And then we look at, okay, how many people did you contact versus how many people you sent proposals to? And then now it's like, oh, you're at like 1-2% of the people that you're contacting, you're sending proposals to. Imagine with that 90% close rate. Now, this isn't going to actually literally translate over, obviously, but imagine if you had that 90% close rate and actually sent a proposal to 100% of those people. At bare minimum, you're going to increase your sales, multiples. And so all I'm saying is, look, present numbers to everyone. No one can buy unless they know how much it costs and they know how to pay. And that's part of you properly communicating the value, but also properly communicating your process. People need to know, hey, what's my next step? What do I do next? Legit, people don't know what your process is, and you got to tell them. So make sure every customer you sell has one thing in common, and that is they need a proposal or contract. So make sure they get that proposal or contract.
Do you want to hop on talking about the objections? We have some in the chat here.
Yeah. Bring them on. What do we got?
So Malcolm said with digital marketing like SEO, that he gets that's a lot of money, or we're not ready to do this now.
Okay. So money, I love the money objection. The money objection, why do people buy? People buy when value exceeds price. So when you're getting money objections, what you're actually getting is they're telling you that I don't believe the value of what you're providing for me exceeds the price that you're telling me I have to pay. So you got to look back and say, okay, what am I saying? Am I saying things that are going to get them to realize, hey, this is an incredible value? Do I need to add value? I don't know.
Well, and I think a lot of times it's more the structuring of how you word the value or the pain points. So you might be hitting on all the things that you do, but especially with like SEO kind of stuff, the terminology with that goes like that over most people's heads. And that's why they're hiring you, because they don't understand half of it, if not a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And so make sure I would highly encourage you to have someone who's not in your industry whatsoever look over your sales script and have them tell you if they can understand what you're saying. And the things that they don't get, have them help you dumb it down to where the average person knows exactly what they're getting from your services, because usually people list off all this stuff that they do, but while it looks impressive, I don't really know what that translates to for me. So maybe even showing markers of like, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, dumb it down as much as you can, and then say which leads to usually a increase in leads or views or people hitting your website between X number and X number, or this percentage and this percentage. Give them a range, because obviously you might not be able to tell them an exact number, and that's fine. But be like, our customers normally see results within this and this. I had it somewhere I was going with that. And I'm not sure where it was now. I was on such a good train and then it just disappeared. But basically just making sure you have clear bullet points. Oh, that was it. And then pain points. Make sure you're clearly figuring out what people's pain points are when they finally pull that trigger to buy the digital marketing or buy the SEO. Figure out what specifically it was, and then talk to that. It's those commercials that go, are you exhausted on a Friday night and you have no idea what to make for dinner? This is what you should do. Go to this restaurant or get our meal prep or whatever. Speak to those pain points and throw those into your sales script, because that's what's going to trigger them to be like, oh, you know what? I literally deal with that every day. I would love for that problem to be solved. So make sure you're speaking to specific pain points. Make sure you're having lingo that people understand. It's not too above their heads. And then adding in like the value that they'll receive from the services that you're offering. All those three things I think would make a huge impact on the money side of things.
Yes. So just to echo what she's saying, steps to handling objections. I know they're up on the board. If you can't see them, number one is you got to listen, then acknowledge, isolate, validate, then determine the type of objection. So it sounds like you definitely know the type of objection, which is money and time. Those are the top two objections that you're hearing. But when you're in a call with them, you want to make sure that you're listening, actively listening. Hey, let me write this down. Please tell me. I got it. What else? Tell me more. These are types of things that let them know that you're listening actively.
Well, and it gives you information too.
Yeah,
good
absolutely.
information usually.
So quality of your questions determine the quality of your results. Make sure you're asking good quality questions, because when you're selling, you're asking them questions. You're not presenting if you're doing it well. Number two is acknowledge. Yeah, you're right. I agree with you. I can see that too. I am in total agreement. I feel the same way. These are ways that you can acknowledge what they're saying.
Another good thing to do is, versus just giving them a whole slew of all the things you do, try at the beginning of it, at the beginning of the call or the meeting or whatever it is, to pinpoint what their specific pain points are, and then tailor the call specifically to those versus like sort of throwing spaghetti at the wall. So if you're like, hey, have you used SEO before? Yes, I have. Okay, perfect. What did you love about it? What did you hate about it?
And by the way, this could probably be done in a forum setting before you even have the call, so you can have it better understanding before you get, and people
just a couple quick questions.
I would even consider an appointment setter if you're at that point where you can have someone ask these questions for you on their behalf, so it's like that personal touch. And hey, Malcolm is going, hey, my name is Kirk, I'm working with Malcolm, he asked me to call you today, ask you a few questions so we can tailor a really in-depth and pinpointed presentation or demo, whatever we want to call it, for you, that is tailored to you and your specific industry. I mean, you can create a blueprint, you can create a whatever that looks like. And that form could be something they fill out online. It could be an appointment setter. It could be you as the appointment setter.
Well, and they feel more valued through that too, because it's like, oh, okay, they're not just throwing me a spiel that everybody hears.
Right.
I'm getting something tailored to my needs, which at the end of the day, everyone should be doing that with their product anyway, tailoring like what they're presenting, or, stuff like SEO, obviously you're tailoring it to their website and their niche and their needs. But verbalizing that and having an extra couple steps helps you, helps them, and it adds perceived value too.
Malcolm, one of the great things I've seen very successful is the use of an application. And what that does is twofold. One is it just
I was thinking like an app on your phone.
No, sorry.
Like,
That's my fault, not your fault. I did a poor job. An application process for people to be your clients, because you're picky. You can choose to be picky. Yes, you're hungry for work, and yes, you want to build your business faster, but the air that you want to present is that, hey, only a certain type of person with a certain type of mindset is the type of person I want to work with, type of person and organization I want to work with. And so you have an application process to determine if they fit in with your mold, because that way that y'all are in alignment before you even have that conversation.
Well, and it ensures too, depending on how closely you work with a client, if they're purchasing a product, they don't really need an application most likely. But if you have a service, or you're working directly with that person, or you're looking to bring someone onto your team, or train them, you're a coach, especially if you're a coach, you're making sure that it's going to be most beneficial to both of your time, because you want to make sure that you're going to have someone who's going to be an awesome client for you, and that you're going to be an awesome coach for them, or an awesome service provider, whatever the case may be. And I know people too who use the application, but they only do it for like higher end products. So maybe they have a range of options where the lower ones, it's more of a just here's a training course, or here's a service. And then as it goes up in value, maybe you're working more closely with that person. And then at that point, they want an application, because they want to make sure that, you're someone that they want to work with too. So you can sort of use that on a sliding scale, depending on whether you think you need it at the lower end of your product options versus the higher end ones that probably do need it.
So like back to the money objection. Another fun one is to response of how to handle that objection is we call it the reduce to ridiculous. All right. So what that means is, let's say that your service is $1,000 a month, and what you got to say, what you go is like, hey, it's $1,000 a month. Look, that's like $30 a day. That is, X number of dollars per hour, per minute. And then you get to ask the question, hey, if we can get you one more sell, what would that one more sell, generate? Oh, like 10 grand. So you're telling me if you put $1,000 into a slot machine and get back $10,000, how long would you play that game?
And at the point that they say no, again, they don't feel confident that the value is exceeding the price. And so at that point, they're still either you're not showing them the right product, or you're not doing a good enough job of explaining what it'll do for them, or they're maybe not your best client, as in like their needs don't fit or align with what you're selling.
Oh, dude, like we had, I'll give you an example. I had a call with someone just the other day, and I was like, hey, we can deliver it, we'll be out, this day, we'll get delivered next week. And his response was like, you know what? This just sounds too complicated. I'm going to go with someone else. I'm like, I looked at Beth. I was like, did I just hear that right?
I need this information to deliver the product. What about this is complicated?
And then he goes, yeah, I think we're going to go with someone else. I was like, well, let me ask you this. I forget what I asked him now that I think about it. But bottom line is, I was able to talk him into getting this, set up for the estimate, the appointment, and then I actually got him, to sign on verbally and write down. And I was like, literally scheduled the fulfillment of this particular client. And he texts me like the day before and says, I went with someone else. I was like,
so you can get people to sign and they'll still. Yeah. So you can't get too like personally involved in it.
Yeah, so you can have someone literally sign, but the reason I bring that up is I recognize by the way he responded on that first call that he was potentially going to be a difficult client, and because I'm a sales guy, I was like, oh, I can close him, and I did. But like at the end of the day, if I just kind of like listened to my gut more than I should have, right? I would have recognized, like, you know what, this is definitely not in alignment with the type of, person and organization that we want to do business with. And guess what? They reneged on the contract.
You normally can tell pretty quickly. It's just the hard part as a business owner, especially when you're getting started, is you're like, but they're a client. And, at the beginning, maybe you have to take more difficult clients and as you get bigger, but just be aware of those because they can cause a lot of different kinds of problems.
And I'll tell you this, it was a low margin product, by the way. It was super.
You're more likely to have more difficult clients at the lower end of your product scale than at your upper end. Real quick, 100%. I do want to touch on, he also said we're not ready to do this now. So that was the other objection.
Time objection, yeah.
I heard a great summary of how to do this. People, when they make decisions, they don't need more time. They need more information. And so remind them, hey, I'm your source for information on this. Let's get your questions answered, because more time isn't going to make a difference on how confident you feel or how much information you have on this product. Asking me questions is going to. So let me help you be able to clarify the things that you're still not sure about. And that might, again, be like terminology or not being sure what it's going to look like on the other end of their benefit side of things. So this sort of goes back to some of the other stuff I was talking about adding in, if it's not already in your script. But the time objection is definitely more of a pushing it off till tomorrow kind of thing versus they're just worried about making a decision. And so just remind them that time's not going to make any difference at all in their ability to make a decision on the product. And honestly, something else that you can probably pull in, depending on the conversation, is you've been thinking about this for a while. I'm probably not the first person that you're speaking to. You've probably done some research on this. You probably talked to a couple different people. You might even have thought about this for a year, and maybe asking questions like, how long have you considered doing this? Have you spoken with anyone else? Having those questions at the front end so that if you get a time objection on the back end, be like, you know what, you told me at the beginning, you've actually been thinking about this for about 2 years now. What's keeping you from going ahead and committing today?
Yeah. I love the scale on 1 to 10. You can find out real quickly because they give you the time objection. Hey, on a scale from 1 to 10, you know, where are you on this product? Do you believe that this product will solve your problem? Oh, 10. I 100% believe it'll solve the problem. Good. And then you're like, all right, let's roll. But if they say any number other than 10, then it's like, okay, what would make it a 10? And then you're going to get an answer back and figure out exactly what the gap is. It's not a time objection. You'll find out what the actual objection is at that point. So the scale of 1 to 10 is an awesome, question I ask a lot. Hey, on a scale from 1 to 10, do you believe that this product or service is going to solve your problem? I bring it back to their why. Why did you agree with, to meet with me today? Are we still trying to solve this problem? Oh yeah, absolutely. Excellent. If we're still trying to solve this problem, do you, on a scale from 1 to 10, do you believe that my product or service can solve that problem? Maybe a 7. Good, great. What do you think would make that a 10?
Yeah.
And then they're going to tell you. And that's going to be super powerful, because then once you get that answer, you're going to be like, hey, that actually is totally included. Or you could be like, I take full responsibility for not properly communicating it, but that is part of,
or you could even
bullet point number 2.
Maybe you could be like, you know what, that's actually included on our premium package.
Right.
And it's only $100 a month more, or whatever the case may be, and be like, if you upgraded to our premium package, now on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you be? And explain, what was included in that. And they might be like, oh yeah, sure, I'm gonna buy today. Like, I could have spent $5,000 a month, on this. I just needed this extra feature, and yours is only $1,000. Perfect. I'll pay $1,500. Whatever the case may be.
So I want to switch gears now. Hey, Malcolm, great content for the night. I really appreciate your feedback and your involvement in the chat. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you are listening, whether it's on Instagram, I don't think we're on Instagram, whether it's on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, do me a huge favor, hit that share button, because I guarantee someone in your network needs to hear what we're talking about here tonight. And, listen, we're here for you guys. So if you have specific questions, you have specific objections, if you have specific bottlenecks with your business, we want to help you grow more effectively, efficiently, and profitably, all while achieving your personal, professional, financial goals. And so today, we were going to, jump into some more content regarding follow-up. One follow-up is probably the biggest thing that people do. And we'll get into some stats later. But same day first, like same day everything. All right. Like day 0 is like second you meet them, right? 5-minute follow-up. This is best. Like you got to have their number. Thanks for your time. Call me at this number. Thank you text within the first 5 minutes of the contact. That is why whenever I get someone's number, I take a picture with them and I text them. And I was like, hey, great to meet you at such and such conference, or, at Starbucks parking lot, wherever we met. It's a great way to be like, hey, great to meet you. And it's a reminder to me of where we met.
Airport boarding line,
TSA, right? And then hit them up again, same day first call, within the hour, preferably, if you can do that. Thank you for the opportunity. It was a pleasure working with you. This is, any questions? What did I miss? If anything, was perfect. I mean, on a scale from 1 to 10. I mean, these are the times where you can ask those types of questions. Who else would be involved in this process? One of my personal favorite questions, other than yourself, who else would be involved in this process or in this deal? And then you're going to get, a name. You can maybe get a committee. Oof, watch out.
Well, you might even find out that they're not the decision maker that you thought they were. They'd be like, well, actually,
that's the biggest reason you ask that question, by the way, because people like to pretend they're decision makers, but
Well,
they're really not.
And they may be influencers, but not decision makers. So they might be like, well, actually the board members are going to be deciding it. But, I'm always part of those. I take notes. I'm the one who passes all the information to them. And so you find out, say they say something like that, like, okay, so I have to make sure this person really clearly understands what I'm saying, because they're not the one making the decision. They're the ones telling it about it. And I know there's been numerous situations where they'll come back and be like, no, we're not interested. I'm like, oh, how come? Like, what was it that, didn't do or it didn't have? And they'd be like, oh, well, they said it didn't do X, Y, Z. And you're like, actually, it does. So if you find out they're not the decision maker, it's super important to try to say, hey, is there an opportunity for me to speak directly with the decision maker, for me to present directly to them?
And one thing I'll say about getting to the decision maker, don't freak out if it's a hard thing to get to the decision maker. The harder it is to get to the decision maker, the easier the sell is going to be. Write that down if you're taking notes, because what happens is someone who has 20 different gatekeepers, if you actually get in front of that person, that's the type of person that makes decisions like this. They're not going to dilly-dally. They're not going to waste time. They're going to be like, hey, you got 3 minutes. Hit me with what you got. And they're either going to love it or hate it, and then you're done. And then, but if they love it, guess what? They're going to make a decision right then and there. They're not going to think about it, because why would they waste time thinking about something like that?
And normally when it takes a long time to get to those people, they make decisions quickly, because they know if you've made it through all the gatekeepers to get to you, that you have something that's worth them listening to, and it's probably something they're going to be interested in.
The follow-up is key. I know people who will not buy from other people that have not followed up at least 3 times. So if you haven't even followed up once, you're not even on the radar. Okay, so make sure, it is so important that you're following up, whether it's a phone call, a text, a voicemail, a text memo. What are those things where you audio record? Yeah,
message,
those are. By the way, those get opened at a higher rate than text messages. Why? Because they'll open up a text message, see something written out, and then they might get distracted. But when they see that thing to hit play, they are so curious. They're like,
but keep it short, because usually you can see the time. And I know for me, if I see over a minute, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll listen to it, but it's going to take a second.
I'm like 10, 20 seconds at most. I try to keep it under 19 seconds.
Yeah, keep it short.
If someone sees 19 seconds, they're like, I can listen to that.
Yeah.
But those are super powerful things that I would highly recommend doing.
The other reason it's super important to do follow-up, keeping going, not okay, real quick, you might have already told this story, but we had someone who was called by a company, I will not say their name, 50 times in a row. 51. And the only reason they stopped then was because they answered to be like, dude, stop, please. And I mean 51 times, the second that it ended, they started calling again. That's much. That's a bit much. Maybe don't do that. That's bordering on harassment, if not fully stepping into it. But maybe not legally, but but with the follow-up
service.
There you go. But with follow-up, super, super, super important to hit them multiple times, because I know from personal experience, as well as just talking to other people, when you have really busy people and you're someone they don't know, even if you do, honestly, people are very busy. And so they see your email or they see your text, especially with text on iPhones where you can't mark it on red again. It ends up going down the line. It gets lost. And then they don't notice it that you text them and they didn't respond until, if they know you, they go to try to text you again. They go, oh, look, they texted me 3 months ago and I never saw it. So
dude, I've missed things all the time.
I just
hate it because
I did it today.
Oh yeah.
I was like, I'm so sorry. I really didn't see this. I haven't been ignoring you for 3 months.
But this is why you use multiple mediums in order to communicate. I mean, it's Instagram, Facebook, Messenger, whatever.
Well, and some people love email. They're like, that is the way to
yeah.
reach me. Other people I know say they're like, message me on Facebook. That is the only thing that I'm going to check. It's the only thing I'm going to see. Other people are like, texting is my thing. But I also know people who have like hundreds of unread text messages. So texting is not the medium to get them on. So hit them on, LinkedIn.
But listen, like this will put you in a box if you're like so set. I know a guy who was like, dude, do not communicate with me unless it's emailed for legal reasons. And I'm like, bro, that's great, whatever. But you're missing out on a whole lot of opportunity because you're not willing to text. You're not willing to download the WhatsApp. You're not willing to.
Depending on your industry, like you might have weird things going
I
on
understand
there, but
industry
most
nuances.
Places.
But yeah, like typically, you're going to want to make sure that you go to where your clients are. Mm-hmm. If they're on WhatsApp, you better get a WhatsApp. If they're on Facebook Messenger, make sure you do work on Facebook.
For example, landscaping companies, you're probably going to find a ton of people, even like dog trainers, things like that. You're going to find a lot of people on Facebook, and you're going to find a lot of people in like the local groups. So if you're in a specific city, a specific town, a specific neighborhood, join those groups because you're going to find a ton of people there. And those are going to be your biggest fans because you get one person from one specific neighborhood. That entire neighborhood probably talks on their little group. Do a great job with them. And they're going to, every time someone asks for a referral for like dog training, they're going to be like, I went such and such and it was fabulous. I would highly recommend it.
This goes for every single service-based business out there, by the way.
Yeah.
You need to be on every single group there is. Specifically, start with your local environment and then start branching out because there's so much in the local environment that this untapped potential. Don't worry about out of state or being national or even global until you master that local market.
And I would highly encourage for like the Facebook groups and things like that, please read the rules.
Yeah.
Because you will get kicked out so fast if you don't listen to it. Because like I know some that it's like realtors, you can post any day about new stuff, but you can only make one post a day. Or groups where it's like on this specific day, you can post one post about your company. Otherwise, you're just commenting on people asking specifically for referrals. But even like just getting into your local community and say you're like a supplement person, you're selling supplements, go to your local gym and be like, hey, I know you guys don't sell supplements here. Can I set up like one Saturday every month and, promote my product or offer samples? Or, hey, maybe I'll host a pizza party from 6 to 7 that night. Can I also set up a table to promote my products?
Get creative.
Yeah.
Get creative because, like I mentioned at the very beginning, is obscurity. People don't know who you are, what you do, why you do it, and you got to tell them. How are you doing that? Are you throwing pizza parties? Are you knocking on doors? Are you doing these creative things that most people are not? So let's talk about some important.
I got off track with follow-up.
No, it's okay. This is great content, but like, let me explain to you how important follow-up is. 2% of sales. You can write these numbers down. 2% of sales are made on the first contact. Only 2%. So if you
98% are not made on the first contact.
If you are only making a single cold call or a single contact and you never follow up one time, guess what? You are only tapping into 2% of your potential to close. Like your potential, like seriously, you can literally do these numbers and recognize your potential if you had only followed up properly. 3% of all sales are made on the second call. Okay. That's the second call. So a little bit better, but not great. 5% is on the third, 10% is on the fourth, and 80% of all sales are made between the 5th and the 12th follow-up. So if you are literally only following up once, twice, 3, maybe 4 times, guess what? You're still only getting 20% of your potential. Not until you hit between 5 and 12 will you close 80% of the people you're talking to.
And that's why it's super important to have like a general flow of what that looks like.
Yes.
I know you can have like a set formula for everyone, and obviously that gets tweaked a little bit, but depending on the people that I'm talking to or connecting with, maybe I got their email. and I don't have their phone number. So I send them that email and I'm not getting a response. I'm maybe not going to just hit them on the email every time. I probably can find them on LinkedIn. So my next connection might be either sending them, like if you have the LinkedIn Premium, sending them a message on LinkedIn, or maybe doing and you got to use this somewhat sparingly, but doing a connection. If you can't send them a message, and adding a note. Make sure you always add a note if you're going to just try to connect with someone that way to get their attention. Finding them through other mediums, or if you know a friend of theirs, to try to make a connection that way. But be creative and have a set structure, but be flexible within that structure depending on what you think will work best for that new connection.
Hey, go ahead and throw in the chat, those that are still with us tonight, what do you think is the number one reason why people fail to follow up? Number one reason, maybe what your number one reason is, right? Because guess what? Like, I mean, I fall into the same trap. Like, I literally have to have KPIs that tell me, hey, how many times do I follow up today? I got to hit certain numbers. And if I don't hit the certain numbers, guess what? I'm producing below my potential. And so if you don't have those KPIs, if you don't have the accountability, guess what? Like, that's part of one of our core values is accountability. And like, this all goes back to the marketing execution workshop, by the way. Like, this is where you dial in your vision, your mission, your core values, your brand pillars, your taglines, like your marketing plan. This is an execution workshop that dials all that in, because guess what? You can't do the sales execution workshop until you know what you're selling and like who you are, what you do, why you do it. Yeah. So you do the marketing, you do the sales, then you do the boot camp. There's a whole process here, which is incredible. So I don't care who you go to learn this information, but for heaven's sakes, do it. We offer it, and I would love to be a part of helping you grow your business more effectively, efficiently, and profitably. But it doesn't have to be me, and I'm not the one-stop shop that knows everything. I don't. But I would highly encourage you to invest in marketing, sales, and operations.
Throw up. Michael had said that they don't have, number one reason that he would see is they don't have a process to follow up, no CRM, no reminders. And I would add to that a lot of times people then also don't set aside a specific time of day for follow-up. So maybe they have those reminders set if they're using a CRM like HubSpot or Salesforce or things like that. But then they get to the end of the day and they're like, oh, well, my 8 hours is up, or, the kids are asking for dinner if, you're working from home. And you're like, man, I didn't get to my follow-up for today. So setting aside a time and saying, hey, from 9 to 10 every day, I'm going to stop, make sure I knock out all my follow-up, and then I'm going to go on to my new leads or onto other stuff that I'm working on.
If you look at my Google Calendar, I literally have sections that are dedicated to certain parts of my business, and one of the sections is a follow-up hour. Like, I just hammer the follow-up.
And not only does it help you like set aside time for that, but it also helps you be more efficient in those hours when you set aside, hey, this is what I'm going to do during this hour. This is what I'm going to do during this hour. Maybe you don't fully finish it, but you're more likely to get more done than if you say, oh, well, sometime today I'm going to do it. Maybe you end up taking 2-3 hours to do what you could have finished in an hour, hour and a half.
One of the biggest, and I'll just tell you this from, hearing what other people are saying, is why so many people fail follow-up. They're not committed, false expectations, undefined, not organized, bad information, too many leads, no plan, lack of motivation, not required, not required by management, rather, being reasonable, no accountability, ethics is one of them, social training. The biggest one, the number one thing that we hear is lazy. And this is like coming from managers saying, oh, my people are lazy. And so there's so many things to unpack there. One is, if you're hiring lazy people, that's your fault. And you got to take full responsibility for that.
Well, and it's your fault too for keeping them.
And it's your fault. Exactly.
Because you should be constantly cutting out that lower 10% that you're giving opportunity to improve, and they're not taking that opportunity.
But also the biggest thing I will say is, if you are attracting lazy people, you need to, again, look at yourself. Am I a lazy person? Because you're not going to attract someone that's not like similar to you in some way, whether that's a mindset, physical, professional, financial, whatever, right? So like make sure like do a self-assessment. Like, I mean, to the extent you take your body seriously, you'll take your business seriously. And I'm a huge proponent of that. We're both training for an ultra marathon right now. We're both
you like slip that in every
I know because I gotta psych
I
myself
think he's
up for
excited.
this. I'm not excited. I just want to get it done. I'm excited for the Mount Whitney. Mount Whitney is the highest point in the lower 48. It's out in California. Look it up. It's super exciting. We finally got a permit to do that. So that's like my excitement. I love summiting the highest point of each state. We've done 20 of the 50 state high points so far. We're on a mission to get all 50.
And this is a good point that Michael said, pulling it back to what we were just saying a minute ago. Create a culture that pushes lazy people out on their own. Yes, 100%. Or pushes them out, or puts that ultimatum of like, you know what? Everyone else is performing better than me. I want to perform better too.
Yeah.
Or everyone else in this place is, you know, financially more prosperous. I want to get to a point where my sales are there. Or everyone else here is extremely fit. I want to find something that I love doing so much that, you know, I'm fit too.
And the last thing I want to say about laziness, just to kind of bring my point around, is lazy is an indication of not knowing fully what you are doing. Okay. So think about that. If you have people that are being lazy, they might not actually be lazy. They might just not know what they're doing, which again, that goes back to training. Are you training? And in our case, are you training on Cardone Universities? That's sales training every single day. That's part of accountability. If you are not training, if you're not role playing, then you have gaps in your potential. Because if you're just trying to wing it every single time you get on the phone, you're going to get those types of results. But if you figure out that process, if you train that process, if you role play the process and then execute, not practice, but execute on your prospects, you're going to see a different result.
And I would argue another reason too that people can be lazy without wanting to be is maybe they know all the general tasks to do, but you really don't have a really clear laid out process for how to go through everything. And so it's just a hodgepodge of things that they sort of generally have to get done. And so having a really clearly laid out process of these are the things that get done, even having it down of like, hey, we encourage people to do this task during this time and this task during this time, a general breakdown of what their day would look like, that can make a huge difference too for people.
Love that. Well, it's been a fun episode of Rescue Owners Live. This has been incredible. Love the feedback from the audience. Thank you for joining us tonight. And we'll see you in every Tuesday from 8 p.m. Until then, be great. Have a great week.